Every business owner should have an assistant, and not just any kind of assistant, but an executive assistant. It is so important for small business owners to start delegating their work in their business. When business owners wear too many hats, it leads to poor profit margin, being underpaid personally as the CEO, burning out because they're working way too much, always feeling stressed, not loving their business. You always want to delegate to somebody who directly or indirectly impacts the revenue. Then you don't have to worry about money. Hiring an assistant is one of the best hires. If you don't already have one, you need one. They are going to free you up so fast. You don't have to do it all. You can get help. This one position will make you more money in your business than any other role in your company. And even if you don't think you can afford to hire right now, I'm going to show you how this hire will pay for themselves fast. So let me ask you, who is your most valuable employee in your company? Hopefully, you immediately think of yourself. You should be producing higher than anybody in your company. In fact, many of you are going to realize I'm like worth 4 or 5 of my employees combined. That is not uncommon. And that actually should be the case. You should be working on the highest revenue generating tasks that, yes, you should be producing way more than lots of your people combined. Now, that's pretty normal. And if that's true, then why do business owners neglect their best employee? Right? Some of you didn't think of yourself. You were like, oh, Jane, she's amazing. I could never lose Jane. Right? But you are your best employee. You should be, right? So for our best employee, why do we allow our best employee to work 60, 70, 80, maybe hours or more, right? And not get them the help they need. So every business owner should have an assistant, and not just any kind of assistant, but an executive assistant. I'll share more on different types in a minute. I not only have an assistant full time, but my assistant has an assistant. And if you're like, what in the world, Stacey, what are you doing that you need all this help? I'm going to show you today that that's how I grow so fast. I delegate. I learn to continue to make myself more valuable, work on the highest level tasks we can. It's how we've been getting all these awards. It's how we've been growing and hitting the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies in America. Like, this is what we're doing, is we're multiplying. Now, with that said, step 1 is understanding who to hire and what to call this role. So there are many things you could call it. You could have an administrative assistant, a personal assistant, an executive assistant. Now, an executive assistant is a high level administrative professional, right? So they are usually working with senior executives in an organization. Okay, you're like, Stacey, I have a small business. We don't have executives. Okay, I get it. But when I say executive, right, think the highest level roles in the company. So you or your right hand, somebody at the top, right? So this role goes actually way beyond just typical administrative tasks, right? And it involves managing some really big responsibilities, because as the CEO, as the business owner, we do everything, right? So this is something that is really crucial, and it helps just make the operations a lot smoother, not just for the person that they're working for, but for the business as a whole. Now, what people don't understand sometimes is they're like, oh, I kind of want to have a combo. I want a personal assistant with an executive assistant. Well, here's what you need to know. A personal assistant, right? They might do laundry, grocery shopping, meal prep. Very helpful. Like, many of us need that, right? But that's not the role I'm talking about. And I don't want to mix those roles. I've actually done it, tried it in the past. It doesn't work because the skill sets of those two people are so different. My executive assistant wants to be on a computer all day. She does not want to be cleaning or meal prepping or grocery shopping, okay? And I have heard time and time again from a lot of our 6, 7-figure, 8-figure business owners, theirs don't want to be doing that either. So I don't recommend putting these roles together, okay? It is so important for small business owners to start delegating their work in their business. Now, a big objection I get is, Stacey, I don't have enough to delegate. I don't know what you're delegating for 40 hours a week. Well, number one, you don't need to delegate 40 hours a week. You could start with 10 hours a week. And I've never met a CEO who does not need at least 10 hours a week delegated. And I'll tell you this, I've never met a CEO where we couldn't find 40 hours worth of delegation. Okay. Now, what you need to know is your business needs a CEO. There are important things that actually generate revenue in your business, And then there are tedious things that just need to get done, right? But don't necessarily impact the revenue. And you cannot afford to allow yourself to be doing the tedious stuff, to be doing the simple checklist stuff that anybody could do. Your business needs a visionary. Your business needs a leader. But how creative are you when you're working 24/7, right? And if you're ever looking at certain people and wondering, how do you get so much done, right? You have to understand they aren't doing it alone. They most likely have a team of people multiplying your time. So you can't compare yourself to me or to somebody else. I mean, literally, my assistant, I work 40 hours plus a week. She's working 40 hours a week. Her assistant's working 40 hours a week. Those two are only working on my projects, right? So how in the world can you compete? You couldn't even work 120 hours, right? And get the kind of output I'm getting. And you might be thinking, oh, Stacey, I am working 120 hours a week. Well, first of all, that's not sustainable. Second of all, your work quality, I can guarantee you it's not there, because anybody working that hard for that long, your productivity decreases. Okay. So let's talk about what types of tasks are most important for the business owner to be working on. Because I know you want to know, well, what should I delegate? Before we say what you should delegate, I want to say, don't delegate this. Keep this on your plate. So first, you should stay focused on generating leads, marketing focused type tasks, sales activities, or anything that is generating revenue, right? Look at the highest paying, highest producing opportunities, and that's where you stay. Maybe even being the talent is a high revenue generating task. Now, I don't ever want the owner to be the main talent, because who's running the business if you're the main person? But that does not mean you cannot do 10 hours a week of being the talent, right? So for instance, let's say that I wanted to teach the dance classes. Maybe I would only put 10 hours of our biggest clients, right? Or I'm with like the biggest group. So I'm getting like the biggest bang for my buck, right? What do I want to do? Now, I personally do not teach dance, and I haven't for over a decade, just because it's a second shift business and I have children and I want to be mom. I don't want to be dance teacher in this season of my life, right? But that does not mean you don't feel like that, you don't feel differently, right? You might say, I love cutting hair. I love grooming dogs. I love being a landscaper, being outside. Great. But you can't think you're going to do it for 40 hours a week and then have the admin stuff be second. Who's marketing this business, right? Who's selling? So you want to be really, really careful. Most small business owners, they're just wearing so many hats that, yeah, they're working on lead gen, and yeah, they're working on Facebook ads, and yeah, but they're like working on it this much and they're not that good at it because they have to do so many other things. Okay. And they don't get to do those kinds of activities enough because they're answering simple customer service questions. They're helping people update their credit card. They're doing things that anybody could be doing. And when business owners wear too many hats, it leads to poor profit margin, being underpaid personally as the CEO, burning out because they're working way too much, always feeling stressed, not loving their business. The amount of people that have said to me, can you teach me how to close my business? I'm like, oh, can I first teach you how to get it running well? And then you can decide? Because if you can get it running well, I bet you want to keep it, right? Like that's the sad part, is you just don't like it now because it's not running well oiled, right? We've got to fix that. Now, this leads into step number 2, which is crafting the job description. So let's talk about what are some tasks an assistant can do for you, because the tasks need to go in the job description, right? So something that can be extremely systematized, anybody can learn. So if you find yourself doing things, right? And a lot of business owners don't have systems documented. They just know how to do it. Well, one thing I would suggest doing, hey, are you a business owner that's looking to not just increase their revenue, but actually have it positively impact your profit without you working more? Because let's be honest, there isn't any more time in the day. If so, I want to invite you to my free training called Protect Your Profit. I'm going to be breaking down our 3-part well-oiled operations framework. We're going to be going over the plan, the people, and the process. This training is completely free. We've already had over 100,000 small business owners join us. as this is one of our most popular trainings in Your Unlock because we've got another one coming up very soon and it will be live. The strategy I'll share in this training is how we landed on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in America list the last 2 years in a row. And I'll show you how to create a winning team of revenue generators, people that actually make you money, not cost you money, even if you don't think you can afford it. Go to welloiledclass.com and get registered for free. You'll walk away from this session with strategies you can actually implement and apply immediately, as well as I'll be gifting my 16-page hiring handbook, how to recruit, hire, and train top-tier talent. So come hang out with me and a few other 100 small business owners who are all looking to scale their business while scaling back their time. So get signed up for free at welloiledclass.com or click the link in the show notes and I will see you there. Is writing out systems for yourself of what you're doing just to see, oh, wow, look at these 5 steps. Anybody could do that, right? We think this can only be me. I'm the only one that can do this. Here is why, right? But when you write out step by step and somebody reads it, somebody might say, I got it. I can do that. No problem. So you want to be very, very careful. I used to think about this with Facebook ads. I would think, no, they're so strategic. It really has to be me. But I wrote everything down. I'm like, okay, well, I start with a hook, right? Then I kind of put like the meat of the content. And then I have a call to action, right? And it's like, okay, that's not that crazy. Like, I don't know. Could I give this to somebody and say, hey, we teach. Could you try to find some hooks? Could you try to grab some of the stuff I've already done and write it up and put it as the meat? And can you put the call to action at the end where they should go? Guess what? I rarely write my ads. In fact, usually they come to me with them written. I might in real time be like, I'm going to edit this a little bit, but I don't write any of that stuff anymore because I realize like it's not as hard as I thought it was. And it's a really high level producing role, but I was still able to offload it, right? And what happened was she now brings me 10 times what I could write myself, okay? So anything systematized, anything where I can write out step by step and there's not a lot of visionary needed, right? Maybe it's like there's not a lot of thinking. It's just please do this, right? Super easy. And then if the typical pay for that job is lower than your hourly rate, right? You need to know like, what am I worth? What can I not do? So I don't really need to know you can't afford to pay yourself $25 an hour for a job. Like I can't. Like a business cannot afford a CEO only producing $25 an hour. You have to be producing so much more than that, right? Or you will not have a sustainable business. So here are 10 pretty like simple things an assistant should be taking on. Number 1, calendar management, right? Scheduling meetings, appointments, events to optimize the executive's time, right? So I'm giving my assistant tips like, listen, I really want to push all meetings to the afternoon, right? Try to put them back to back. As long as you schedule them for 25 minutes and you give me a 5-minute like little gap, I can go to the bathroom, I can grab water, I can eat a protein bar. I've got plenty of time. Like push them back to back because I want the mornings for me to be productive, right? So I'm teaching her what I like to do and what I'm already doing, right? Because there is a system in my head of when I schedule somebody on my calendar, right? I'm not just like, oh, okay, this is open. No, I'm like, oh, I was kind of going to do this and I kind of want to do that. Okay, I should put her here. Just say that out loud, write it on paper, and you can pass it off to an assistant. Number 2, travel arrangements, planning and organizing travel, okay? I used to think there is 0% chance anybody could pick my plane time. Like, I'm like, no, because sometimes it's different. Like, do the kids have an event that weekend? And do I want to rush back to like make it, right? So for instance, if I wrap a meeting at 5 p.m. on a Friday, typically I would fly home like Saturday morning. But if the children have a volleyball tournament on Saturday, oh, get me on the red eye out because I'm going to that game. Okay, but that can all be written down. Everything I just said, it sounds like so custom in my head. But when I write it on paper, I'm like, oh, she could literally look at the calendar and be like, Stacey has nothing. She'll be home by 9 a.m. that morning. She'll have plenty of time to hang out with the kids all day, right? Good. So trust me, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Number 3, communication management. Oh, this is like my favorite. Screening, prioritizing, managing phone calls, emails, maybe Facebook messages, wherever you're getting messages. Go have her or him, mine's a her, so that's why I'm going to keep saying her, but it could be a him for sure. Go start having this person right? Weed through. So for me, I hate email. And what I had her doing when we first got started for many years is she would just check my email 2 to 3 times a day. She would weed through everything, and anything I really needed my eyes on that she really couldn't answer, she would put in a folder called Stacy Reply. I would go in there once a day. I would answer anything in Stacy Reply. So she might get, 20, 30, 40 emails, and I would only see like 3, 4, 5, right? Big difference. That alone is worth an assistant. Okay. Because email can suck you dry. You get in there and then you get distracted and then you're answering and you're, just too much, right? Also, I feel really guilty saying no to people sometimes, but if I say to her, listen, if anybody asks me to be on their podcast right now, it's a no for the next 3 weeks because here's what I have going on. Okay, she gets an email, hey, can Stacey be on my podcast? And she'll just respond back and say, hey, listen, she's actually not going to be doing that for 3 more weeks. If you want, you can check back in, etc. If I read it, I'm like, wow, I know this person and they're so nice. And sure, why not? Right? So she's just so much better at not breaking boundaries. Okay. And then with email, we're many years together, so we've grown together. But now I'm completely out of email, and she just pings me once a day in Slack with anything she couldn't answer, and now she answers it. And the reason I like this, and the reason I feel this is better than going in there once a day, is because if I go in and answer the question for her, she doesn't even know what I answered. She doesn't know what they're saying. But if I tell her what I want, she can stay in the communication with that person. And I don't want to get sucked back into an email that I'm like, okay, well, now she can read it. So why am I reading it? So for us, like, I am not checking email, and it's amazing. I love it. Okay. Number 4, meeting coordination, like scheduling, right? Arranging meetings, preparing materials. So like I could be heading in to a big monthly meeting or a big quarterly meeting, and I can easily say to her, grab everybody's stuff, get it on an agenda, right? Help me prep that. She also comes to my meetings and she is there to take notes. How many times do you go to a meeting and you leave with like a huge to-do list? Okay. I don't leave with a to-do list. My assistant leaves with a to-do list and she's doing it. It's amazing. Okay. Number 5, document preparation. Drafting, editing, formatting reports, presentations, memos, right? Like talking to the other team members, right? Whatever it is, document prep can be absolutely massive. There's so much stuff sometimes you're like, I need to know this, or can you get me this? Or I was doing research on things. It's like now she pulls that and gives it to me. So that's super, super helpful. Kind of ties into number 6, information management, right? So she could be doing research on industry trends. She could be gathering information. One thing I like to do is I will actually go check out competitors certain times of year, and I'll document like what I see and what I've noticed, what they've got going on. And then I can compare that data for next year. So you know how I use data to direct me with my business? Well, I use their data from year over year to see where they're trending and where they're heading. I have literally been with that data, been able to predict, oh, wow, they're getting smaller. What's happening? Are they going to go out of business at some point? Like, this is interesting. Oh, wow, they're growing. Why are they going so aggressively? Maybe I got to go check out their marketing more, right? So now she can grab that data, pull it in, and instead of me trying to find it, she's presenting it. Okay. So that's huge. Number 7, gatekeeping. This is, I think, one of the biggest, okay, probably like second to email, is managing access to me, right? So, how many people are knocking on your door, emailing, calling, trying to get a hold of you? They want you, they don't want anybody else, right? So, it's really hard to get to me, right? My email, I'm not checking. Okay. People don't have my cell phone number, right? So she's really the gatekeeper deciding am I going to tell Stacey about this? Do I think this is one of her priorities? Do I want to distract her right now with a shiny object? Like what has she told me to do and what do I need to do moving forward? Okay. Number 8 is event planning. So she could be organizing maybe you do an annual event for your team. Maybe you do events for your business. You hold conferences or you go to conferences, whatever it is, right? So my assistant does all of our event planning. So she's like my assistant plus event coordinator. We are an events company. So we have lots of events for Well Oiled, for a $1 Million Mastermind Powerhouse. I have a couple masterminds I participate in. So she is helping planning. Do you have a car? Do we need to get a speaker? Do I have to order lunches? Like she is just doing everything. If I didn't have her helping with events, that would take up so much of my time. Number 9, confidentiality, really handling this is like sensitive information, confidential information with discretion. She really has access to pretty much everything she possibly could have, which we want to make sure you bring on a trustworthy person, somebody that you really fully feel confident with, because you're going to be giving them access to everything. And even though she checks my email, not everybody knows she's the one checking my email, right? So somebody could just send me an email with something very personal, right? And she's opening it. Okay. So you do want to make sure that this person understands like this is a very discreet role and you should not be sharing. You should not be like, never like assume everything is confidential and never anything should be said out loud. So there's just things where it's hard to delegate certain things when you're like, oh, shoot, they're going to need my social security number. Oh, they're going to need this information. Like I'm not passing out that information. Well, with my assistant, right, I've got all of that stuff that I wouldn't just like put out in one password and let anybody have, right? I've given that to her and I've really built that trust of like, make sure this is kept private. Okay. And then the last thing, number 10, and there's so many more, but these are just the top 10, scheduling personal things, dentist appointments, doctor's appointments, personal travel, keeping up with the kids' school schedule and the kids' school newsletters. And this volleyball game got changed from 4 to 5 and like changing into the calendar, right? So that is really helpful because it's a lot of work to be a business owner and to be a parent and to run a family. And there's a lot of stuff. So it's like, wow, if she can help me man that as well, it's so incredibly helpful. So hit the like button if you know you need to delegate some of those items I just listed. And I'm hoping to see lots of likes because I know you are not delegating all of them. Now, every day I ask myself, what is on my to-do list that she could do? So maybe today I'm going to create a podcast and I say, hey, I think I want to do a podcast on delegation. Could you prep some research for me before I start? Could you go into school and pull, it's our client member portal. Could you go ask our well-oiled clients their biggest struggles when it comes to delegating? And can you get all those answers for me so I can see them? And then could you go find me some stats or some just like some statistics where like anything that would kind of be shocking about delegation in small business? That would be amazing. Okay. So I'm not saying, oh, go write my podcast, right? But I'm saying, could you get me this? Could you gather this? Could you see what they're struggling with? Could you figure out what this best title would be because of what they're asking for, right? Or I'll create a webinar and I'll have her go through my entire Word doc and figure out what should be sent to the designer, what should be on the slides itself, right? So that kind of stuff is just like constant. Like, what could she do? What am I doing today? Or like when I procrastinate, I'll just, I'm going to do this week, maybe next week. And the next week I'm like, next week, right? And okay, I'll go, okay, why am I procrastinating on that? It's usually because it's a large project and I'm just like not excited. So I'll say to myself, what is a micro step that I could give my assistant right now? Because I'm clearly not getting this started. So what could I do to get the ball rolling and maybe she could keep it rolling, right? And help me. And that always, always helps. Okay. So then I will say, find out what they are naturally good at. So one time I had an assistant who loved cleaning. She actually had a cleaning business on the side. So even though I just said to you, do not mix personal and like business stuff, I really did have her once a week come in and not do business stuff. And she just like cleaned my house, organized it, got back together, and it worked, right? So my current assistant is good at writing. So she took over at one point all of our writing our email sequences and writing our text message broadcasts. We want it to be in my voice. Well, she's with me all the time. So literally when she would write it, I would go, did I write this or did you write this? Like, because she's taking my words, right? Now we're at a level where we're big enough where we couldn't have her do that anymore. So we've now delegated that to an actual writer. But my point with that is, in the meantime, there could be things you could be assigning before you can hire somebody more part-time or full-time for that role. Okay. And I'll tell you this too. It's also just really nice to have somebody there. So it's lonely being an entrepreneur and it's tough being alone by yourself doing a lot of this stuff. So if I'm doing a live training, right, instead of just like it used to be me on the live call and then tech problems, the chat would break or something was glitching, right? And I would be simultaneously coaching and then trying to text, like message Zoom like, what's going on? I'm trying to struggle with this and what's happening. Now I can keep just showing up and I know she's there and I know she's on it and she's figuring out what's going on and she's doing it. So I can focus on my clients, right? So just having help, having another set of eyes, right? It's so incredibly important. Okay. Number 3, our last and final step. So once you've decided what the role is going to be, what he or she is going to do, now we need to actually put it out there and start interviewing. And my biggest tip of the interview process is a paid sample project before you hire. Okay. Hiring is such a gamble. We spend 15, 30 minutes sometimes and make an offer, right? I say we, I do not mean me anymore. That was me. Some of us listening, maybe you're interviewing 15 minutes and you're like, I love you. Can we get married? Right? Like you're just so excited. We right now probably spend 2 to 3 rounds of an interview. They could be 30, 45 minutes, an hour each, depending on what it is, right? But that's still not a lot of time. So I could be 2 hours with a person and decide, let's work together. But how well do we know each other, right? Not well. So, of course, they try to sound super amazing in the interview and they say, I can do this and I can do that. I have this many years of experience and oh, that's easy and I'll fix that and no problem. The sample project is a great way to see if they're as good as they say they are. Okay. So, a few ideas of a sample project. Okay. Now, and first, people always ask me, I don't know what to give her. I don't know what to give him, right? Well, you just ask yourself, what will you have them do the first week? So the sample project is saying to them, I want to pay you next week for 5 hours or 10 hours, right? You decide and actually get to work. But it's a sample project. And I just want you to know that there are a few others of you in the sample project stage. So they're still in the interview process. They do not know if they're getting the job. Now I'm going to pay for it. So I typically pick my 2 or 3 favorites and I give them a sample project. Again, 5 or 10 hours worth. You might decide to pay them like 20 to 30 hours. Typically, I pay a little less than the real position offers. So if they know this role's for 30, I might purposely say it's a $25 hour sample project. Why? Because they're not even hired yet. And I don't know what their quality of work is. And I don't know if they're going to be good. I'm also paying for 3 people or 2 people to do the same work. Okay. So with that said, I usually do 5 or 10 hours. And I usually make their list of things to do longer than what I have given them. So I might say, here's your list. Please work for 10 hours and stop at 10. There should be stuff left over. Okay. You are probably not going to finish it. Why do I do that? Because I'm also looking at speed of candidates and not just quality. So, lesson learned, right? Always comes from lesson learned. So, one time I didn't do speed. I just said, here's the project, turn it in this week by Friday. I get 2 people to turn it in. One was significantly better than the other one. Okay. Now, because we did not have it timed or asked how many hours they worked, I bet you the girl that won took 3 times as long as the girl that did not win. And I picked the girl that was better. And then I let her go because everything she did took way too long. But she worked for me for a year. What a bummer, right? I just kept thinking, is she a perfectionist? Like, why is that taking 10 hours? It should literally take 3 hours. I give her assignments and she could only finish half. And she was just very slow, but she was good. So her sample project won. And if I would have weighed, okay, she's way better, but man, she takes 3 times as long. That means 3 times the pay, right? This girl's like not as good, but it's still good. I might have picked the other person. Okay. So the speed part is really, really nice to figure out what's going on. Okay. Now, I actually have fresh data from a sample project we just did this past week. So this was interesting. I even delegated the hiring process. So my hiring process would have been done through like HR, right? And then eventually they would have passed it to me because I'm looking to hire somebody that directly reports to me. Okay. So that's why I would have been involved in that stage. So I was so busy. I'm like, I can't even really get involved yet. So I said to my assistant, which how nice, I was like, listen, could you interview? And this is what I want you to grab. Okay. I want you to interview all these people, get your top 3, get them sample projects, get the sample project, right? Manage them turning it in, get it, and then pick your favorite, but don't tell me. I'll look at them. I'll pick my favorite. We'll see if we're on the same page. Okay. So what's amazing is let's say she picks somebody and we were not on the same page. And I'm like, oh no, no, I like this. I like person A. I could go back and watch the recording of the interview to be like, listen, here's what you missed that I wouldn't have missed, but she still interviewed, so I have the data, right? And then the sample project, if we were to offer the sample I mean, the work is the work, right? Like it's really hard to judge anything but the work, right? So what was really, really interesting was we picked the same person, which is like easy, right? If we pick the same person, we're on the same page. But what's funny is person number one turned in her assignment a minute before it was due, right? So unfortunately, that's telling me, okay, you're one of those people that like to just like, if I give you a Friday deadline, you're never turning it in on Thursday, right? I want you to like to know it's due Friday, but like if you get it done on Thursday, get it to me, right? So that and the work was just not that great. So you already turned it in at the last possible second. Your work wasn't great. Okay. Second person, I could tell they grabbed it from a software and kind of took that software and presented their work. And I knew immediately what they did. And I was like, oh, I know what that software is, and I could have done that myself for free. I don't need to pay you to go grab it and just present it to me. So that to me felt very out of integrity. And it also showed a lack of high level. Like, oh, wow, they need that software to produce that versus actually coming up with it on their own. Okay. And then the third person, what's funny is my assistant was like, she had the best interview and the best sample project. And I didn't see the interview, but the sample project was so good. I was like, that's the one I want. Right. So my point is, my assistant did all of that. All I did was say, that's my favorite sample project. And now I have like a quick 15, 20-minute interview to meet this person myself, make sure we hit it off because she's reporting to me. So I want to like this person and make sure we get along well. And pretty much if we have a great interview, like the job is hers. We've already done it. And my point of this whole thing is number one, my assistant did it, which is awesome. But number two is this is step three, the sample project. The sample project tells you everything. So my assistant just hired an assistant and she did the whole interview process without me, which she's never done before. That was her first time. And she goes, okay, I have a front runner, but I'm giving them the sample project. I'm giving two people the sample project. Okay. But my front runner, I'm really excited about. She goes, I went with the other person because he blew the front runner out of the water with that sample project. Like this is why people can just be so good in an interview and their communication skills. You just like fall in love with them. You're like, oh my goodness, they're amazing, right? And they can do this and they can do that. Well, yeah, that's what they said they can do, but they haven't shown you yet. And now it's time to see the skill set. And this is going to tell you everything you need to know. And this is when we start to really see, oh, wow, the girl that we've already been thinking is the best. And we feel great. Or we're like, wow, the person who's been pretending and fooling us to look the best is actually not that good. So the sample project is the secret sauce to the unicorns I hire on my team because I've weeded out all of the people that are lying, that aren't great, that are exaggerating on their skill sets. They don't get to work in my business because the sample project shows us before we ever even need to make that hire. Okay, so here's the deal. If you are in desperate need of an assistant and you want a step-by-step guide of exactly what to do, like what you write on the job description, you want the interview questions, you want my offer letter, my sample project, you name it. I have an amazing mini course called How to Hire an A-Player Assistant in 14 Days, and it's $47. Okay, that is it. So if you want to check that out, go to aplayerassistant.com and snag it for $47. That will be put in the show notes. Okay. Now, you might be thinking, but Stacey, I don't think I can afford to hire. All right, do not go anywhere. We got to get into this because I know you're like, oh my goodness, I need this person. But now some of you are thinking, but I can't afford them. And I want to bust that objection. So here's the deal. You always want to delegate to somebody who directly or indirectly impacts the revenue. Then you don't have to worry about money. When people say I can't afford to hire, I'm like, oh, they don't know how to hire. Okay, I got it. Okay, we've got to work on this. Because if you say I can't afford it, you think you have to afford them. But good people, A players, pay for themselves. So that means you're keeping B, C, D players on your team. So let's talk about what are directly and indirectly. Okay, so directly is when you delegate activities like marketing, sales, right? You call people that have outstanding balances and they collect money. That's somebody directly that impacts the money, okay? Indirectly, right? This is when your assistant checks your email. You're not really making money in your email, possibly, right? But when you are not checking your email and you are working on all those directly impacting, money making activities, you are making enough money to pay for him or her. Okay. So think about that, right? Now, an assistant can work on directly and indirectly. You might decide, well, I'm still the director of marketing in my business. If she could help me with marketing activities, that could help the business, right? So she does have an opportunity to be a directly impacting money making person in the business. Okay. So I just want to make sure you understand that, but she has to do one or the other or both, right? You do not get to delegate something and not get stronger if she's indirectly making the company money. Okay. Now think about this. If I pay somebody $20 an hour, 10 hours a week. That's 800 a month. I have freed myself up for 40 hours a month. Guys, you're not doing the math if you don't think you can afford this. If you are now having 40 hours a month, it only costs you 800 bucks. Could you, with those 40 hours, go make $800 extra? Yes. Yes, you can. Okay. And don't forget, you guys, you don't have to hire full time. This could be part time. This could be a virtual. This doesn't have to be expensive. This could be an overseas executive assistant if you wanted to, right? If you don't have the budget, that's fine. But trust me when I say you could make an extra $800 by getting freed up 40 hours a month. That means you only have to learn how to make an extra 20 bucks an hour. You should be making more than 20 bucks an hour. Okay. So I always say this phrase, you have to act like a CEO before you get paid like one. You are not going to make the kind of money you want to make or get paid a fair CEO salary by doing 10, 20, $30 an hour jobs. It's just not going to happen. And if you're waiting to be able to afford, you'll be waiting a long time because what's going to change? You're maxed out. Your revenue is not just going to jump high when you are maxed out. So you need to be proactive. You need to find the time to hire, then be smart with the time that person actually gives you back, right? So if you hire this amazing assistant for 10 hours a week and you change no behaviors on yourself and she's always doing things that don't actually make the company money, you're just down in profit margin, which is why you're like, I can't afford that. But that's not how you should be hiring, okay? In well-oiled operations, this is what we teach, right? This is how you really start to learn that skill set. So let me tell you, you are already paying for it in lost revenue. You are losing more than $20 to $30 an hour every week that you, the CEO, are being the assistant. Like, let me tell you right there. So you think you can't afford it. You already are affording it. You're already paying it. You're losing it. Okay. Now, I want to just go over very quickly some mistakes that small business owners make when picking this next person. Okay. Picking this next hire. So a lot of business owners, they want to get the hard stuff off of their plate. They're like, oh, I'm going to have her do the marketing. Like, no, okay? Even if they have marketing experience, can somebody else just do that, Stacey? I don't want to do that, right? If you don't know how to sell your product or market your product, it's going to be hard for a random person off the street to come in and start doing it for you, okay? I have hired the best of the best when it comes to copywriting, website designers, you name it. But when I was still in this weird phase of like, what am I selling? What do I do? Those amazing copywriters or amazing Facebook ad people couldn't sell my stuff because I didn't know what I was doing. So you need to know your product better than anybody before you delegate it. So yes, now I have a copywriter. Now I have a director of marketing. I have, people doing all my social media and things like that, Facebook ads. Yes, now I have it because I know how to sell it. I know how to market it and I'm getting assistance on it. In fact, I've taught them. So we just hired a new Facebook ads company and they're amazing, but they were giving me copy for the ads. And I was like, is it rude of me to say I think my copy's better than this copy? Like, is it possible that I keep my own copy? And they were like, no. If you think yours is better than ours and you know your person, you need to keep it. And sure enough, like mine is doing better. So, and these are like fit. If I told you who these people worked with, you're like, there's no way you're better than them. At writing for my company, yes, I am. Because I know my person. I know what they say when I talk to them, right? I have better language, right? They were writing ads that were like, let's take your business to the next level. And I was like, oh, geez. Me and everybody else is going to take your business to the next level. What does that even mean? Right? Nobody says that, right? So we have to be really, really careful. So with that said, you are, outsourcing these things because you just don't like it. But some of you have to get better at those things, right? I needed to get better at copywriting. I needed to get better at like learning. I Facebook ads, it was more like I needed to learn enough to be dangerous, learn enough to question, right? I needed to learn how to market, I needed to learn how to sell, right? All of those things were really, really important. So this is why I actually typically suggest starting with giving out tasks that are indirectly making the company money. I think you should get the easy stuff and you keep the harder stuff. Okay. Now think about this. You're probably going to pay this person, I don't know, 20, 30 bucks an hour. You're going to figure out what's the rate in your area, what you need to do. Okay. You can go to salary.com, places like that, and say, what is this in my area for this position, what I would call it, et cetera. Okay. Sometimes those numbers are a little higher than they need to be for a small business, but just it's a good place to like see a range. With that said, now my point is you cannot think you're going to hire somebody for 20 to 30 bucks an hour and give her the hardest jobs and you take the easy ones. Doesn't make sense. You are going to keep the hardest jobs and you are going to give her the easy stuff she can't mess up. Okay. So, in my opinion, the business owners that we see come into Well Oiled, they are not coming in spending enough time on marketing, sales, and fulfillment, customer service. They're like, I don't want to do marketing. I don't want to learn sales. I want to do, right? And it's like, you have to know how to do this before you outsource it. So I really believe that hiring an assistant is one of the best hires. If you don't already have one, you need one. They are going to free you up so fast. Now, somebody will say, but Stacey, how I'm small yet? Like, at what point do I hire? Honestly, guys, when I created Well Oiled and I was making no money with it because it was new, I hired an assistant before we were making money because I knew it's going to take work to build a business from scratch. And if I have to build this thing as fast as I want it, I can't be doing $10 an hour jobs, $20 an hour jobs, right? So I had an assistant before I was making money. So pretty much if you have a business, I am telling you, every one of you should have an assistant. Okay. Now, be careful. You aren't allowing limiting beliefs to stop you. No one can do it as good as me, Stacey. Good help is hard to find. I don't have time to train somebody. No way. I don't have time to hire. You want me to get on interviews? I don't even have enough work to give. Yes, you do. I don't have money to hire. Okay. So here's the deal with those lies you're telling yourself and those lies that are holding you back, it is what's keeping you stuck on this hamster wheel. Okay. This is hurting you. Now, I have a client who is involved in like a free local, it was either like a bank or like one of those like organizations that help businesses. And be careful when you're in programs like that because what happens is who's she talking to? She's talking to a banker or a CPA that is literally like knows numbers. And she's like, I really need to hire. Okay. And she's like, I'm maxed out. I'm working like 60, 70 hours a week. The business cannot grow without me hiring because we're at capacity, but I don't have time to market. So like I'm stuck. I need to hire. And the guy said, he looked at her numbers, right? And it did not look good. And he said, you can't afford it. And it was true. She couldn't at the time afford it. He did not lie to her, but he gave her really bad advice because what he was telling her was, you can't afford it. So therefore you can't do it. So therefore this is your life. You are going to continue to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week being fulfillment. And then you're going to have to hurry and do marketing on top of that every once in a while, get customers in, then hurry and fulfill. And then this is going to be your life. Okay. So that's what I told her. He's right. But this is what that means. What do you think about that? And she was like, no, I can't do this. Like, I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted. So she didn't follow his advice, took our advice, did it anyway, even though the math did not look good. What happened was I think in June, she hit her annual revenue from the year before in June. Okay. That means she's on track to double her revenue. Okay. This person came in full time to free her up to do the big things she wasn't able to do. If you're in like some of those free programs, be careful, guys, because they are going to just look at paper and math and they're going to look at you and say, yeah, you can't. And unfortunately, the only way out of that cycle is by taking that risk, but having the skill set of hiring, training, maximizing, and getting them revenue producing. Okay. So that is a huge thing you need to figure out. You got to get out of that hamster wheel. So what is stopping you? Comment below and tell me which limiting belief stops you most often. Okay. No one is good as me. Good help is hard to find. I don't have time. Stacey, I couldn't do this. I don't have work. I want to hear it. Which one is it? Put it in the chat. And I will say, I often hear, but Stacey, I'm not good at delegating, right? And I want you to remember that it is just a skill set like anything else. And you know what? I wasn't good at it either. But now that I have dozens and dozens of employees and contractors and VAs, I'm a lot better because I've been practicing that skill set, right? I've been working that muscle. You just haven't been working that muscle. Of course you're not good at it yet, but you will get good at it and it'll be a skill set you will have for the rest of your life, right? Now, I was not great at giving people things to do first either, right? I would struggle on what to give them. I'd give them too much, I'd give them too little, right? But because I've been practicing it, right? That is what's giving me freedom. So think about this. I'm going to wrap up here. So there are many key positions in your business: marketing, sales, product delivery, maybe you call it fulfillment or customer success, finance, operations, HR. That's a lot. How many of those do you own in your business? I just said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many of those do you own in your business? In the chat right now, say, I own X out of 6 hats. Some of you are going to be like, I own all of them, right? How many of you are responsible for? Maybe you have somebody helping in marketing, but you're like, I'm the one that is double checking. Like if I didn't double check, balls would be dropping. Okay. So I see people getting help, but I also see them still having to own. You want to be able to like let it go and not think about it because your manager, your person has it under control. Okay. You are most likely wearing too many hats. Some of you are all of the positions, right? You know it. No wonder you're feeling the way that you feel. No wonder why work is taking over your life. You don't have to do it all. You can get help. Okay. Now, if an assistant is something that is like really intriguing to you, we have put together our How to Hire an A Player Assistant in 14 Days or Less mini course. It is $47. It is loaded with job description, interview questions, offer letter, sample project, you name it. Like, we want to help you get help. So, what an easy way to get started. It's $47, such a no brainer. And it also is a great way for you to see what it's like to be here at Well Oiled. Sometimes people want to join, but they're like, I don't know, I'm unsure. For $47, you get a little taste of what the quality of our work is, our trainings are, our templates. And then from there, if you're like, ooh, I want to work with them, I want coaching, you'll get more details inside of the mini course. If you have any questions about today's training, comment below. I want to answer those questions. That is it for today's episode on Well Oiled Operations. Thanks for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, rate, share, review. It means so much to me when you do that. And thank you so much. My name is Stacey Tuschel, your guide to streamlining and scaling your business, and I will see you in next week's video.